Hi again everyone, I hope you are all doing really well. In today's video we are going to look at what has been going on with Workhorse Group stock lately, the ticker symbol of course being WKHS, and we will also have a little bit of a look into some news and the pending legal challenge they have submitted against the US Postal Service. That challenge of course being about the delivery vehicle contract that was awarded to Oshkosh in what I think and have covered before may actually be somewhat of a dubious circumstance. So let's get into it. Just to start with, I want to look at the movement of the stock over the last few weeks. This chart here is a 2-hour candlestick chart with the RSI indicator listed below down here. This period on the screen basically covers the rally since the stock became a target of the meme stock investors back in May, where its price rose from a low of around just over $7 down here, hitting a peak in around $18.70, and just kind of hanging out in this sort of range between these two lines here. Over the last few days we have seen a bit of a decline in the stock value as indicated here. However, pleasingly, when the stock oversold according to the RSI, that sell-off was somewhat reversed and we sort of saw a stabilizing and slight rising in price. So people started to buy the stock back once it became oversold, which was what we saw during Friday's trade, allowing the price to stabilize, which sort of saw the end of the declines that had been going on for a few days and hopefully has brought about a stabilization of the stock price. I think the current price may become a new level of lower bound resistance, as it can be seen a few weeks ago following the initial rally. So this rough price line here, we can see that there was this short period, this is about a day, half a day's trade here, where it did stay around that same level. If we look at the 20, 50 and 100 day weighted moving averages, which are indicated by these colored lines here, like here, here and here, we see on a few occasions where these lines bisect each other. Now, it isn't uncommon to see the 20 crossing the 50 and 100, but even the 50 has been crossing the 100. You see the 50 crossing the 100 up around here. So this is a reflection of the unstable price fluctuations we have seen in the stock that extend beyond the period being looked at in this chart. This makes me not totally convinced yet that we have found a new level of resistance, but the current $12.80 mark appears to be a strong candidate. I think this week's trade will be what shows if this can become a new level of resistance. I'm quietly hopeful for a few reasons that it will, which I will go into in a few moments. In this next chart, I have removed the RSI and put in the volume of trade at the bottom. As you can see, there has been a slowing in interest in the stock after this initial boom period when it first became targeted by the meme stocks. However, what you do still see is you do still see these rally points here, and there's another one just behind my screen. I should have taken it off there. So what these tall green columns are showing is the stock is still mustering enthusiastic rallies and generally holding a price around those marks for the day. Not that you should ever try to make trading decisions based on historic patterns, but there seems to be a pattern of the stock rising or falling to a price point and generally staying around that mark for most of the trading day. This also gives the stock a greater sense of stability for the price movements that it's moving around to for the day. Unless there's any other major news coming out from the company or the markets in general, or a concerted effort from retail traders in their approach to the company, I'm expecting these smaller trading volume numbers to continue and a bit more of a bump in the price as the stock looks to have normalized trading patterns following its recent period of rallying and falling. As we saw on the RSI indicator on the other page, the stock is still only just above the lower bound of normal trading, so there's a bit of room for it to move up, and I think with that you usually see a bit of an increase in the price. Just very quickly, in terms of interest in the Workhorse stock, it may have fallen a little bit over the past week. However, it is still pleasing to see that it ranks among the top 20 mentioned stocks on Reddit, given that it is a smaller listed company compared to many of those listed as being more frequently spoken about on this list. This shows that there is still interest in the stock, and I think many pundits like me are watching some of the developments around this stock as the story of Workhorse is far from being told, as we will soon see. Much of the recent interest in Workhorse Group has been pinned to the potential short squeeze. Now, according to this data from MarketWatch, it is still one of the most shorted stocks on the market at the moment, with over 36% of the stock currently shorted as of the close of trade on Friday. This is interesting because the stock had a movement of decline in price, which would have been an opportunity for those shorting at the top of the market to exit their positions. I can't prove this, but that makes me think that there are still some people holding short positions from when Workhorse was at its low point back in May, around the $7 mark. If so, they will likely be frustrated by what took place in terms of the share price spotting some resistance around the $12 to $13 mark on Friday, and will also be looking keenly at what happens with the trade this week. Looking at this recent shorts information, we can see that perhaps part of the short squeeze may have actually already happened, and that was on the 25th of June when we see this particularly low short volume ratio. This date is the second day after the stock hit its recent high point of $18.70, and the price hung around the $14 to $15 mark for about a week. This theory is further backed up on the next slide, but before I show you that, I want to highlight that the shorts borrow fee for Workhorse is not a particularly high one at 5.05% per annum. So what that basically means is it's not too expensive to hold on to these short positions. So for further short action to occur, I think the price needs to be pushed up further and maintained, which I think is really going to be dependent on some solid positive developments for the company being released at this stage, which may well occur. Just to illustrate my point that there has already been a bit of a squeeze, look at this tower of fails to deliver in June. This was the initial squeeze in the stock. However, looking at the current short interest, we can see that there is still some more action that could occur. So looking beyond the short squeeze news in the stock, we're also going to have a little look at some other news as well as the legal challenge. There was some news in the area of patents a few weeks ago, which seems to have been missed by many. Let me just read through this extract from an article from truckinginfo.com published about 2 months ago. So, Workhorse Group Inc., an American technology company providing electric vehicles to the last mile delivery sector, has expanded its patent portfolio through a recently filed provisional application for its Horsefly Unmanned Aerial Systems, UAS. The patents include several of the system's key components and capabilities, including its ground control station, winch deliveries, and aircraft structure. The Horsefly UAS delivers parcels, carries sensors and cameras, and operates autonomously. The Horsefly was designed to deliver about 80% of most commercial packages, sizes, shapes, and weights while carrying a 5-pound payload up to 10 miles. I will link the full article in the description. However, the significance of this article is it does demonstrate that Workhorse Group is very much a market leader in their area, and that even if they are unsuccessful in their legal challenge against the US Postal Service, it is still a company that has a future both through its products and its research and its intellectual property. Now moving on to the legal challenge, it is fairly common knowledge now that Workhorse has mounted a legal challenge against the US Postal Service's awarding of the contract for delivery of vehicles to Oshkosh, and this was one of the catalysts for their share price spike 2 weeks ago. So I'm just going to take you through a few extracts from an article by Bloomberg, which again I will link in the description for you guys to have a look at. So the US Postal Service didn't give Workhorse Group a fair shot at a contract worth as much as $6 billion to build mail delivery vans, the maker of electric vehicles said in its challenges of the service's decision to award the contract to Oshkosh Corp. The Postal Service put its thumb on the scale against Workhorse, in part by blaming a prototype for driver error, the Loveland, Ohio-based company said in a complaint at the US Court of Federal Claims in Washington, D.C. The complaint was filed under seal June 16 and a redacted version was filed June 28. The article then goes on to say a little bit later on that Workhorse in its complaint said the Postal Service ensured it had no fair chance of a contract award. The agency treated Workhorse more harshly than competitors and didn't give enough notice of perceived deficiencies of the company's proposal according to the complaint. Which, that point is something that is a little bit difficult to prove, but if you look at the details of the complaints that they have filed, it's pretty heavy stuff that what Workhorse are leveling towards the US Postal Service. The US Postal Service misleadingly claimed a flaw in the brake system left a prototype to roll into a ditch, injuring a test track driver according to the complaint. In fact, the Postal Service worker incorrectly left the prototype in drive rather than park, Workhorse said in the complaint. So this is just a taster of what the challenge is about. There is a really good video on YouTube from the channel Ticker Time News, which I'm going to link in the description, that goes through the grounds of the challenge. It's some pretty serious claims that, if are true, reeks of massive government and corporate corruption, and I think would at least mean that Workhorse's challenge should be reconsidered, or there potentially could be some claim for damages coming their way. I encourage you to check out the video I link in the description. It goes through the summary really well. It covers all sorts of deals which actually shocked me, but again, you have to consider that it is only one side of the issue. We're only hearing Workhorse's side of the issue. I still have a tapered hope for this legal challenge. I find it hard to conceive the decision being overturned, even if it does prove to be an entirely corrupted and dodgy process. Sadly, money seems to talk, and Oshkosh and the US Postal Service, through the taxpayers, have lots of it, while Workhorse does not. I'll cross my fingers, but I'm not going to hold my breath on this one. So just to sum up my final thoughts from this video on Workhorse, I think the Workhorse stock price is hopefully reaching a point of stability, but we will see more about that as the week goes on. I think the short squeeze may need more momentum from news catalysts to be driven further at this point in time. Otherwise, I think it's just going to remain around that same point. Workhorse is still doing great things as a company and have every chance of success even without this US Postal Service contract. Their technology seems to be a real front runner in the industry, and they've got some really innovative products, and it's proving because there are companies that are lining up to buy their vans. The legal challenge possibly could have a favourable result for Workhorse. The ultimate goal will be them getting the contract awarded to them. There could be damages perhaps paid. It's a really dodgy sort of situation, especially when you factor in the political side, which we didn't talk about in this video, but I have mentioned before about it being a quick decision to award the contract to undermine the Biden administration's push to go green with government vehicles. Anyway, we'll just have to see what happens with it. I won't believe any results until I see them. I know that there's probably been a case of the market buying the news and selling the story lately, but I think even without this contract, that Workhorse still has a viable future ahead of them. Anyway, that's about all I have for this video. I hope you enjoyed it. If so, please leave a like on the video. Also, if you have not done so already, I would encourage you to subscribe to the channel. It is one of the best ways you can support a small content producer such as myself, and it's a terrific way to keep up to date with my ramblings and rantings around different stocks and the like. Until next time everyone, take care, see ya.